Hello, this is Alex, welcome to Boomstick Gaming, and allow me to present to you the skill-based roguelike Curse of the Dead Gods. Each new labyrinth presents a different challenge to put your skills to the test, but if you can master the manipulation of darkness and light, you might just be able to avoid being lost to the corruption. In simpler terms, the game is quite punishing and you'll need to know exactly what you're doing, which is where I come in. In this brief overview, I'm going to break down everything you need to know about this new project while also highlighting the elements that set this apart from other action-focused dungeon crawlers out there. Curse of the Dead Gods' most unique element that differentiates it the most from other roguelike style games is its use of darkness and light. At any moment you can switch between your combat weapons and your trusty torch, which can illuminate your surroundings, but it has much more utility than simply that. This can be used to light braziers spread around the map, or used as an attack to turn enemies into a moving light source. Obviously, better visibility is one bonus from this, but there are also certain passive upgrades and curses that can work for or against you depending on if you're in the light or the dark. Some enemy types will even cower in fear if you have your torch out, with the trade-off being that you'll need to put it away if you want to attack with any of your main weapons. There are also traps hidden all over that will not be visible until you're directly in front of them unless they are well lit, which will then reveal them and provide slightly safer spelunking. These traps go both ways and can be strategically used against your enemies as well, so keep a lookout for explosive pots, cobwebs, and spikes, among other hazards. Your torch in Curse of the Dead Gods is a very flexible tool, and if you use it tactically to manipulate the environment itself, you will greatly increase your odds of survival because this game can be admittedly quite brutal if you go in haphazardly. The combat system in Curse of the Dead Gods is quick but methodical, strategic yet chaotic, and pretty satisfying overall once you find the groove with it. You have a primary and secondary weapon slot which start out with a sword and pistol, but these can be swapped out for other weapons like shields, daggers, and maces as you come across them during your run. There are finisher combos with your primary and secondary if you alternate between the two, but these do require a tick of your stamina style resource, indicated by the blue diamonds under your character. Dodging also requires use of this, but if you evade an attack with perfect timing, you can earn a tick of this resource right back. Another thing that requires use of the stamina gauge are the two-handed weapons in your third weapon slot. These can be very strong, but you'll not be able to use them quite as often as your primary weapon unless you pace yourself, since these can chew through your stamina pretty fast. Although stamina does regen very quickly, if you find yourself being overzealous with your attacks, you might find that you won't have enough stamina to perform a dodge when you really need it. There is also a parry mechanic that can temporarily break enemies' armor, making them more susceptible to damage, but the parry window for this is quite tight, so you really need to memorize enemies' movesets if you want to utilize this. Overall, the combat system, even in this somewhat early stage, is quite solid with a nice impact to it and really satisfying hit feedback, which is something I always appreciate in action games. As you explore these procedurally assembled dungeons, you will be building up the corruption meter down in the bottom right corner of the screen from either taking damage from certain enemy attacks, sacrificing blood for items, paying for healing, or simply moving on to the next floor. Once you get to 100%, when you do move on to that next area, you will take on a new curse. These can fundamentally change the mechanics of the game, usually making things quite a bit harder for you, but they can also be a double-edged sword where you can turn them into a slight advantage. These curses are not entirely permanent, and if you manage to take down a boss, you'll find that you'll be cleansed of some of them. Corruption is not only an added penalty for taking damage and exploring deeper, but it's also a secondary currency that you'll be regularly tempted to spend at the cost of your sanity. The primary forms of character upgrades you'll be amassing during each run are different weapon types with modifiers on them, relics which give passive bonuses, and stats which just flat out improve your hero. You can decide which routes will yield the type of bonuses you're needing the most, and these improvements can be dropped by enemies, but the majority of these will require a sacrifice of gold or blood at vendor-style shops. Like any good rogue-style game, synergies are a big part of your character's build, and some runs will definitely feel far better than others. One of my personal favorite loadouts I had was a poison-inflicting two-handed spear that did increased damage while in the dark, which made for an interesting combo where I actually wanted to avoid the light. That was everything you really need to know about Curse of the Dead Gods, and if you want to follow its development when it's coming early March, the Steam page is live now, which I have in the description, where you can wishlist it if you want to keep up to date with it. From what you have seen from what I showed off today, let me know what kind of features you would like to see added or tweaked in the game as it continues to develop, and I can pass it on to the devs if you make some good points. Now, if you happen to enjoy my style of straightforward gaming coverage, consider subscribing to Boomstick Gaming, ringing that little bell icon if you already are, and you can also find me on Twitter at BoomstickAlex. A special shout out to the top supporting YouTube members and patrons you're seeing on screen, who really help to keep this individually owned and operated channel going. As always, this has been Alex from Boomstick Gaming, and thanks for watching.